KLTV soundcheck, KLTV soundcheck.
I guess the little lady says it's time. Welcome to Tuesday meeting of the BOCC. So I don't see anybody here for invocation today, so we can start with the pledge if you want to join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fairly light agenda today. We do have Humane Society. We have a workshop today at 10 with Humane Society of Southwest Washington. Want to come in? Let's see, I'd entertain a motion for approval of minutes of April 27, 28.
Make a motion to approve minutes of April 27, 28.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any corrections, comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. I'll run down through consent agenda, agreements, contracts, bid awards. We have a contract bond in lieu of retainage and contract with Lakeside for the 2026 countywide paving project we do. Total amount of that is just over 2.7 million. Event Center has two things on here. One is a grant from the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. It's a agreement with the Rotary Club of Longview and Cowlitz County Tourism for the large grant award for Martin's Dock infrastructure improvements. Total grant is 60,000. Another agreement with Watson Creative for marketing, brand development, and planning service for the Event Center. Total amount is 50,000, and that'll be reimbursed to the county by the Public Facilities District. Resolution on IT rescinding 06-086 and updating the Cowlitz County cellular phone policy. I'm told we're bringing the policy is real old, has not been updated. We're bringing it up to current practice. Board correspondence, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, notice dated 4/22/25 regarding the 2025 spillway gate operation. Certifications. Letter dated 5/4/26 to Washington County's risk pool rescinding notice of potential withdrawal from the pool. Letter dated 4/25/26 from the Regional Director of the State of Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife regarding the notice of property acquisition in Cowlitz County. They have an RCO grant application for Hofstadt Hills Phase 2 and Imboden Road access. And last week we had vouchers in the amount of $7,342,817.30. That's consent agenda. Any questions, comments on consent? Yeah, Ron?
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for being here and representing us. Just a question, I just barely caught this one on property acquisition by, what's the deal here again?
Are you talking about the last one?
Yeah.
Department of Fish and Wildlife? They're notifying us that they have two grant applications through the RCO, the state. What does that stand for?
My
Yeah.
experience and representing all of us is anything that in Fish and Wildlife, game, state agencies take over, it always goes downhill rather than uphill. So I would ask that you request what their plan of management is, clear and concise, and an agreement with us, the paying taxpayers, and you, the county commissioners.
Yeah, Ron, I think the plan is that they're going to acquire that from DNR. And what they're wanting to do at the Hofstad Bluffs is add that to the hunting unit for what they call the mud flow unit, which is on the south end of the Tootle. And they're wanting to incorporate that lower end of it into that unit for more hunting opportunities within that area. So they're just planning on, from what I understand, to expand that unit down further down the mud flow and create more recreational opportunities there. The one that is the one that's off of Imboden, that one, from what I understand, is to create more access to the water for fishing, kayaking, and that type of thing. So they're planning on, I don't know if they're planning on putting boat ramps in or what it is, but I know that the plan is to make it to where there's more public access to the river via that piece of property.
Okay, so there is a plan.
Yeah.
See, the other experience with these plans is that they do it and then they make it no access, more of this non-access area. And for young people, senior citizens, et cetera, that's the future of these developments.
Yeah, I don't know the details to it, but I can tell you that the Hofstad Bluffs one is going to be a draw only unit that they're going to add to the draw only units that are there. And then the Imboden one, you're going to have the pass that you have to, that you get when you get your fishing license or whatever, the park pass, in order to access that, from what I understand.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that there is some sort of a plan. Thank you.
Typically, RCO grants have to have, when I sat on it in the nineties, it was called IAC, and there has to be a benefit to the recreationists typically for them to grant the thing. And I think sounds like their intention from
Yeah.
Commissioner Rader.
Do we have any say in the letter just states that they're applying for the grant. It doesn't mean that they're gonna get it, correct? I mean, do we
Right.
have any say in that?
Well, they have a committee it runs through. I don't know exactly how it operates now. When I sit on it, when it was under a different name, we actually at times would have public in and they could say something about the grants, or they could write in recommendations or disagreements with it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you could still do that, but I don't know that for a fact. Okay, anything else on consent? Okay, I'd entertain a motion on consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. One last check for hands and stuff. Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. You know if George is on today? There, I see his name pop up.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, George.
Morning.
Motion items, so 6 and 7 are both yours?
That is correct. I'm not sure if the board had an opportunity to see the SBAR that I submitted regarding these motion items.
Okay. I guess I would ask the pleasure, you guys, you want to take them both at once? Yesterday, we heard Wakai come have an offer. Do you want to look at them separately, or do you think the overriding
I think
concern
still the
still
same.
applies?
Yeah,
Okay.
as far as I'm concerned, it does. Especially after I opened my email this morning.
Yeah, okay. We had I'll try and explain these as best I can. For a long time, we've done contracts with areas that don't have juvenile facilities, and they come and do us, and you can see like this one is asking for renewal at $250 a day. In the past few, I don't know when the SAM cases started, when the court made the ruling that statute of limitations did not apply to juvenile facilities for anybody that felt like they were abused. So we're seeing, they refer to them as SAM cases. We're seeing cases from 30 years ago where people are saying they were abused in facilities, and it's causing real concerns with the liabilities to counties and what they're having to pay out based on these cases that are coming through. We have, our attorney and our risk pool really does not want us taking kids from outside of Cowlitz County because we assume the liability for those kids. So on item 6 and 7, and you saw us terminate a contract, I think, with whatever county in Oregon that St. Helens is in earlier. So the motion here is to approve these two, and we're being advised to not do that. So I would tell you that we're probably gonna, I mean, it'll go to a vote here, but just giving you some background on why we're turning those down. It puts the county at some exposure that we feel is unacceptable for what we get
For the next 30 years.
for the next 30 years. Yeah,
Indefinitely, I mean, until something is, the statute's put back
Right.
in.
yeah.
And I do appreciate Wakaikum's, willingness to modify the contract and the agreement to work with us on our concerns, but the overarching concern is that long-standing liability.
If there was some type of an agreement that comes forward in the future, we can always write a new contract, but at this point, we just need to terminate these.
The other thing George asked us is what we wanted to consider 60 days. If we terminate them, do we want to consider it calendar days, or the contract doesn't spell it out?
I would like to give them as much time as we can to find something, because they were kind of anticipating us approving these, I would imagine, and then we're just flopping this in their lap. So I think that we should do, if we did 60 work days, I think would be, I
Okay,
think that'd be fair in my personal opinion.
Which gave us a date of July 31st, right? Is that what he said?
I think so.
right in that area.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless there's public comment on all these things? Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, this, am I on? Okay. George, this question's to you. Do you know how many juveniles are right now in the juvenile hall?
I can look that up right now. Give me just 1 second here. Currently 4.
Or, and you're aware that we spend over $3.5 million for this facility, and we're being offered $250 per day. That is totally, if we went with these, it would be totally incompetent. So I really appreciate our commissioners and their level-headedness and saving our county money by possibly redirecting the way that we handle our juveniles. In fact, we might farm them out and take care of the build, just, hopefully our judges will agree, but sell our building or do something. We can't afford that much money for nothing and take on the responsibility. So I appreciate our commissioners in their wise decision.
George, are any of those kids that are in the facility right now from other counties?
None. I'm looking at the list right now. It looks like they're all pending adjudication here in our county.
Okay.
And this question is, I'm hoping some judges are zooming in this morning. I have a really hard time believing that with all the, and I know personally police officers and what happens on the street. I do, because I get told that only 4 juveniles are in the juvenile system. When my husband was working there for a short time after he retired teaching, there were at least 25, always. Are our judges not doing their job? Only 4? I mean, what's going on? How come we don't have some of our teens paying for the consequences of their actions? Because I know that it's happening. I'm, like I say, I have friends that tell me these things, and I know what's happening. And not to have them serving time for what they've done, I question the judge's decisions hugely. Thank you.
Can I speak to the issue of four? The number fluctuates. I just popped in for last Wednesday. We were at 8, and prior to that, I'll keep looking. We were at 11 on the 28th of April. So the numbers will fluctuate. In terms of the number and why we have so few and why it fluctuates so much, judges don't have a lot of say in terms of how long they stay here. They do for court orders, but the truth of the matter is we've had a change in laws. Many laws have changed that have created essentially that issue in our detention facility. And I'll be the first to admit, yes, 4 is a low number. When I first started 19 years ago, we had about 72 beds being filled. But that is not the business. I'll be the first to admit a facility, yeah, we would benefit from a smaller facility to accommodate the number that we're seeing. But over the years, the legislature has changed so much. And so the laws have changed for juveniles that now they're getting a second, third bite of the apple to not go to court. And so when we're not seeing them in court, then the trickle down effect is that we won't see them in our detention facility eventually.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Okay, if it's your pleasure, I'd entertain a motion on both with a 60-day business day.
Do you want a motion in the negative not to approve them, or you want a motion in the positive and we'll vote against it?
I'd just give a motion in negative to not approve these contracts and
Okay.
give them 60 business days to.
On motion items 6 and 7 for the Juvenile Detention Center, I move that we disapprove these contracts and terminate them with the 60-day notice ending on July 31st.
Perfect. Okay, we have a motion. See if I have any hands raised. I see none. Okay, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor of terminating?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the direction. I'm sure Wakayakum will appreciate the business days, 60 days. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George.
Thanks, George.
Have a good day.
You too.
Okay. Like I said, at 10, we have Humane Society of Southwest Washington in. We have some time before then. If you have any public comments you wish to make. Sure.
I have two. One is from my friend Elaine Campbell, and she wants to know if there's the results of any discussions with the Corps of Engineers, if they're going to be dredging, if anything's in the future, because she's concerned about it.
Yeah. There's been no headway for them to say dredging that we ever give up on it though. But we did hear yesterday from Mark that lives up at Eco Park that they have started some construction work on the raise up there, which is a little disconcerting, but that.
We didn't get 100% definitive answer, but I was told that we do have the possibility of getting financing money in the 2028 WRDA for spot dredging on the Cowlitz. We're gonna, from what I understand right now, it's the mouth and then 2 other spots below the bridge there, which is great, but we also have problems further up the river that are causing back eddies and things. So we're gonna continue to push to dredge the whole thing.
That's a good start. Thank you. And my second question comes from me. Several months ago, we had discussions about a general mental health facility. Has that been shelved? Are we still looking for one and asking outside entity to come and invest in our county? I mean, it's still going?
It is. I just had a conversation with an individual on Friday, and it's on my list to bring up to my seatmates to have a conversation about the contract that they're proposing and what they want to do. So yes,
And then you'll let us know what that is.
I mean, as soon as we have a definitive
Okay.
answer, yeah.
We desperately need one, and desperately, and I'm backing you 100%.
I'm as frustrated as you guys are with how slow things move in the government, believe me.
Another question of general interest that relates to the 50 pallet homes and $5 million that was invested in the Longview area, et cetera. And of course, that is not operating now. It was recently announced in a meeting that those pallet homes cannot be utilized again, that they are not qualified for housing homeless. Is there more story behind that? Or I'm asking it because it's ultimately going to come back to you, the commissioners, for funding of anything or anybody it comes up with in support of or in concert with our communities.
I haven't
I
had
haven't
any,
had any discussion with anybody from Longview about that situation.
I was in Longview's city council meeting last week, and there was people who spoke in favor of reopening Camp Hope and the emotional things that go along with that. And there were people who were adamantly opposed to doing it. There was some statements made about how wonderfully successful that was, and you know, da 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 da. I just sat in the back and listened and made a few notes. There's no statistics that I heard from the city council supporting the wonderful success that people were touting. And they didn't see, I didn't see any reaction from the majority of the board towards trying to reopen that as a low barrier shelter again. So I don't anticipate that going anywhere or us having to get involved with it again. I can't see that they can reopen it.
Well, that's one that, and that clearly is out there. But the foundational question is, the word I picked up is that some rules or regulations came through that says those houses cannot even be reoccupied for homeless individuals. So I was just wondering if there was any more insight on that. It doesn't go anywhere if the houses themselves have been disqualified by another one of our rulings or whatever from coming out of left field.
I didn't hear any comments along those lines that I recollect. What I did hear, there was a motion made to sell those for, to some other county that is using those or some similar items. But that motion for them to sell that and try to recoup some of their cost got voted down under the idea of, well, maybe we might need them still if we want to reopen it. So that was kind of like left hanging in let's investigate what we might be able to do with them type attitude. So I don't know where that's gonna go.
Very good. Okay.
I
so-
did read that to that point, that they were looking into selling them is how it came up that they were not certified or whatever, you know, for somebody to live in, which is interesting to me because they're certified
reason they
living
were
on the
bought.
streets. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
bought them was
Was 'cause-
somebody to live in.
Yeah. So that is an interesting conversation, but I haven't had anybody from Longview approach me on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that just sides in rumor mill or whatever. There's nothing fact, I'll call it. Let's go for facts that regarding those pallet houses anywhere or whatever. Okay, thank you.
anything else?
One thing I did want to bring up,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, with regards to the parking situation on Kalama River Road, I did hear back from Jason, and the trailer itself is not parked in the right of way. The vehicles are. And so they would like us to decide to have a conversation about whether or not we want to make our right of way no parking. And that's it in that area.
I think Public Works is kind of working on that. Will bring something to us. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. that We need to make a decision on that one way or the other.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh, I can, we made a decision yesterday. I can update you on this. We've talked in quite a few times on the actions of the Forest Practices Board and expanding the buffers from streams and taking some private timber from the port of Port Angeles is leading an amicus, however they say it, amicus brief, their attorney there. And we've decided to join that. So you have the Clallam County, I think you're gonna have Pacific, Port of Longview is looking at joining that, Cowlitz County to join that, and I think you'll probably see Lewis, you'll probably see Grays, you'll probably see any counties that are affected by this join that amicus brief. Um, that attorney up there will be working on it. We're all gonna split the cost. They're estimating a cost of 15 to 20,000 to do this. So that's just kind of update on trying to use the court system to get that changed. Okay. Nothing else. We will recess till 10 o'clock when Humane Society is in here. Okay, come out of recess. It's 10 o'clock. We're glad to have Humane Society of Southwest Washington with us today in a conversation. I think I'd just probably let you introduce yourselves and take off and go.
Great. Well, thank you for having us and inviting us here for this discussion. I'm Andrea Bruno. I'm the president of the Humane Society for Southwest Washington.
Megan Dennis, Vice President of Strategic Initiatives.
We also have with us in the front row over here, Jen Rylander, who's head of operations for the shelter, and also Kyle Shigetti, who is vice chair of our board of directors, should there be any questions that they can answer. What we'd like to do, if you would permit us, is to start with a short presentation just to ground us and kind of how we got to this place.
Sure.
And then open up for questions and conversation.
Sure.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for having us. And I really want to thank each of you for inviting us here today to workshop. And really, I know it's a lot of time and energy and appreciate the conversation. I know we all understand the importance of animal sheltering services to residents, public safety, and the overall community well-being. And we respect that the responsibility you carry and appreciate the chance to have an open and constructive discussion today about the role we can play in animal sheltering for the county. Before we walk through the contract process and our services, I want to start with why we're here in Cowlitz County. Our entry into the community in 2025 was at the request of the leadership of the Humane Society of Cowlitz County and their board of directors. That request was centered on building a more sustainable model for animal welfare and sheltering in this county. The goal was to leverage our experience, operational expertise, and organizational resources to strengthen services in Cowlitz County and ensure long-term sustainability. Everything we've done since then, including responding to the countywide RFP for animal sheltering services, flows from that original purpose. We appreciate the opportunity today to explain the contract process, take ownership where we could have done better, and talk about how we move forward together as partners. Today's workshop is about explaining our response to a countywide RFP seeking animal sheltering services. It is also about reaffirming our commitment to the community and reinforcing our intent to be a strong, reliable partner to Cowlitz County and the other local jurisdictions. I thought it would be helpful to ground us in the process we were asked to follow for establishing a contract beyond 2025. In September of 2025, we responded to a countywide RFP seeking animal sheltering services for the years 2026 through 28. That RFP represented an interlocal agreement that included Cowlitz County and the cities of Longview, Kelso, Castle Rock, and Woodland. We applauded this approach and actually believe this is a model for other counties, including Clark County, that could be followed in the future. In response to the RFP, we carefully developed a proposal that balanced the operational needs to operate effectively for each jurisdiction and meet the requirements of the RFP while keeping affordability and partnership in mind. In late October, we negotiated in good faith with the Joint Negotiation Board as we were asked. Following a meeting to discuss our proposal, we accepted a counteroffer that reduced the proposed fees for 27 and 28 by 5% and 10% respectively. At this point, we understood there to be a verbal agreement to the adjusted proposal. We began working with the Longview staff who were serving as the administrative lead for the ILA to establish a timeline for required stray cat ordinance updates and finalizing the contract. It became clear we would not meet the December deadline, and extensions were issued through February of 26. Ordinance information was then finalized and prepared for presentation to the various jurisdiction councils by that joint negotiating board in mid-January. Late in January, we were asked by Cowlitz County to clarify how ordinance changes affected the costs or the fees. We confirmed that our proposal already reflected those cost reductions. In February, the county made the decision to withdraw from the ILA, and the contract expired shortly thereafter. We understand the concerns and pressures involved in that decision. Our continued outreach reflects our goal to be of service to this community. Looking back, we recognize this was a complex and new process. There are areas where communication could have been clearer or more carefully paced, and we take ownership for any role we played in this. I know that's a lot to go through, and hopefully that kind of frames out the process and what we were trying to follow. Now I'd like Megan to take a moment to share a little bit more about the sheltering contract and the services that come with that.
In 2025, HSSW's Longview campus received a total of over 1,000 animals from unincorporated Cowlitz County. This reflects the scale of services required to support public safety, animal welfare, and community needs, and underscores the importance of a fully resourced regional sheltering system. HSSW provides a complete, integrated animal sheltering system that supports public safety, animal welfare, and community needs across all jurisdictions. We provide intake, housing, and daily care for stray and seized animals, medical care for sick, injured, and at-risk animals, core vaccinations on intake to prevent disease spread, spay-neuter for all unclaimed animals prior to adoption, disease monitoring, prevention and outbreak management, adoption programs to place animals into homes, foster and transfer programs to expand our capacity and our footprint, focus on reducing length of stay and improving outcomes, humane euthanasia for animals that are suffering or pose a public safety risk. We do not euthanize healthy animals. Lost and found services, including public posting of found animals, return to owner services as our primary outcome, redemption services for reclaimed pets, including fee processing for the jurisdictions. All of those fees are returned back to the jurisdictions in the form of a credit on your invoices. Direct support to animal control and law enforcement. We also
Could you repeat what you just said previous to what you just started to say?
Yeah, of
please?
course. We provide redemption services for all reclaimed animals. Any of those reclaimed fees go directly back to the jurisdiction. I'll talk about it a little later, but the same is for licensing. So I know Cowlitz currently does not license, but any of those fees that we take in on behalf of those jurisdictions are returned to you in the form of a credit when we send your monthly invoice. We don't keep any of those fees. The same as for Clark County. We also provide direct support for your animal control officers with animal-specific training and support they may need. Management of state-required 10-day bite quarantines. Behavior evaluations and risk assessments to mitigate risk of returning dangerous animals into the community. Rabies testing coordination with public health partners. We provide on-site coordination, triage, and operational support to animal control officers. There's always the option for our mobile veterinary clinic to deploy when needed or requested to triage and provide support on site. We also provide forensic exams, diagnostic testing, documentation, and expert testimony when requested for those cases. Administration of jurisdictional pet licensing. Fees are also returned to support the animal sheltering program to those jurisdictions. Accurate data tracking and reporting to support compliance. Euthanasia services for sick or injured wildlife animals. Proper handling and disposal of deceased animals that come in. Trained certified staff in animal welfare and handling. 7-day-a-week operations. Data-driven performance tracking and accountability. For 2026, we agreed to a number through the ILA that reimbursed us 48% of what it costs to support these municipal contracts. As partners, we are committed to make this affordable, and we are offsetting the remainder with donations and fees from the community.
As a partner in the community, we also fund and provide the following services to ensure the support this community wants and needs is available. These services are not charged as part of the contract, but are an additional value to this community that we support through fundraising and other sources. Beyond contracted sheltering services, we provide low-cost veterinary clinic. We recently did some converting of our shelter clinic so that we could open it to the community to provide low-cost services to those who need help for their owned pet. Pet food assistance, we're giving out hundreds of pounds of food to those who have food insecurity each week. Safe Haven Emergency Boarding, which is our program for those that are experiencing a medical or other crisis and have no one to care for their pet. We provide that temporary boarding for them. Public education and dog training classes. These are all with the goal of keeping pets and people together and out of the shelter. Sometimes those small interventions are the difference between keeping a pet and having to surrender them to the shelter. We're investing in trap, neuter, return, and shelter neuter return programs that bring value to municipalities by humanely stabilizing the community cat populations, reducing intake and service calls, and lowering long-term sheltering and enforcement costs. We accept owner surrenders from any local jurisdiction regardless of a contract and provide pet retention support to help families keep their pets whenever it is safe and possible. Again, our goal is to try to avoid animals coming into the shelter. It really is to keep them in homes where they're loved and they may just need a little bit of support. We also provide spay-neuter services for local rescue partners who otherwise would have very limited service access. Our mobile clinic, as Megan mentioned, also adds value in large-scale animal control cases by enabling on-site triage, care, and reducing intake. It improves outcomes and lowers overall response costs. And these are added resources that we're happy to support you with when that need arises. These added services are proactive, what we call upstream approaches to managing the community pet population, keeping pets in homes, and reducing overall shelter intake, benefiting residents and local government alike. So by partnering with us as a nonprofit animal welfare organization with 129 years of success and experience, we really help provide and stabilize communities and have a number of benefits that we think are important to note. Proven success managing both small and large municipal contracts. We've done this work for decades. Expertise in animal welfare that really does then lower and mitigate risk and liability for you as a local municipality charged with doing this work by the state. It provides a centralized sheltering model that improves outcomes while giving the community one clear, reliable place to go for all of their animal services and needs. Decrease community disease and free roaming strays. As I said, it also reduces risk and liability and supports the enforcement and public safety efforts that you all have on your plate. And we leverage nearly 190 volunteers and growing that help control costs while expanding care capacity. We provide local jobs and support local businesses like J.H. Kelly, who just completed a remodel for us. And because we can predict and set 3-year schedules, costs can be more predictable for you in terms of how you provide these services. So I know that was a lot of information, but I hope it does ground us in kind of what I said before, how we got here and our commitment to this community. So we welcome now dialogue questions. We want to be collaborative partners with you all in animal welfare and animal services. I invite you for a tour. I know a few of you have been out, but we've done some remodeling recently and made some changes I think you'd be excited to see and to learn more about us. I hope you'll also join us. You should have received an invitation to a ribbon cutting event we're having on May 13th in the afternoon, where we will celebrate the grand opening of our new community veterinary clinic and the completion of the remodel on the east section of our shelter. Our commitment here is long-term. We want to be accountable, transparent, and reliable as a partner to you all in the cities of Longview, Kelso, Castle Rock, and Woodland. Thank you again for the opportunity to meet today, to present to you, and we're happy to discuss anything that you want to talk about or answer any questions.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Could you, for just a foundation, could you start with an explanation of exactly what's required of us by law and what of these services is above and beyond that?
By state law,
State law.
okay. Dangerous animals, bite quarantines, it's pretty minimal for state law. However, you do have local ordinances that require a lot more than that currently. Stray animals, there's a definition in your ordinance that includes cats, dogs, other small animals. And then it references animals later on in your code, in your current code that identifies those animals if they're free roaming, found as strays, that they have to have a location to go. And currently, or in 2025, that would have been our location. So does that answer your question?
More or less.
Okay.
Megan, you made the comment that the current contract supports 48% of what it costs for you guys to house an animal.
Yes.
Does that 48% cover what our minimum requirements are? And or at what point does what the contract that that you guys have for us, at what point do we start supporting the mission of your foundation as opposed to what is required of us? Because if the 48% covers what is required of us and the other 52 covers your mission, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So good question. The cost of care that we calculated, which is the 48% that we referred to, is based on the services that were asked of us in the RFP. So we outlined the services that we provide, which were asked of us to submit a proposal for and to contract for in the RFP that was sent out jointly by City of Longview. That those are the ones that we listed as covered under your contract and calculated in our cost of care. Andrea referred to additional services and benefits that are a benefit to your community that are not calculated in that cost of care. So all of those are 100% either HSSW funded or donor funded, service funded, but are not calculated and paid for by the municipalities.
So what you're telling
That is
me
mission work.
that what we requested in the RFP, we're only paying 48% of that
Exactly.
Correct.
based on what your proposal was.
Exactly.
Correct.
Okay. And when you said that you mitigate risks and liability to us, how do you do that?
We take in animals that are dangerous, 10-day bite quarantine, dangerous dogs. Any animal could come in and we don't have the history on those animals and could be a dangerous animal. So by us taking in those animals on behalf of the cities and the county, we take on that risk and liability for you. If you are doing this work, you're taking on that risk and liability is my understanding.
But it's not any risk above and beyond what is statutorily required of us to handle it anyway.
Well, we are contracting with us to handle it, or had contracted with us to handle. So we took on that risk and liability on your behalf. So if you are statutorily required to handle it and doing that work yourself, then you are taking on that risk and liability with your county workers to handle and house those animals.
By contracting with us, we're taking on that risk and liability for you and bringing the expertise and the trained staff that have a good handle on how to assess risk, how to manage risk, how to make decisions that are best for the community.
Would you, talking about risks, there's risks on both sides of it, on the control side and then on the housing side. So we take on the risk for the control because we were forced to take on control a couple of years ago. We didn't have a choice. So I'm not an attorney, but I think probably the control risk, would you think that's higher than after you have them in the shelter and then in the cage? I think we're taking on pretty much the majority of that anyway.
I'm not exactly sure that I'm qualified to answer how much risk and how that would work out. But what I can say is that animal control officers will pick them up and handle them for let's say, less than 2 hours, we are taking them on for a minimum of 3 days and handling them for a minimum of 3 days.
But you will know from the animal control officer if the animal is a problem before it gets there.
Sometimes we don't have the history on every animal that comes in, and not every animal comes in through an animal control officer. I actually have the number. It's somewhere around 25% of our total intake from unincorporated Cowlitz County came in through animal control officers. The other 75% came in through your citizens.
It's my understanding, I've been told, and I'm not trying to be asked hard questions, but I'm told that you're not taking them from residents in the county, that they have to come through us. So I'm not sure where you're taking the risk.
Well, that's correct.
It-
Not when we're not
So
contracted.
if
This was
somebody
prior.
out in Castle Rock that lives off Spirit Lake Highway picks up a dog and they bring it to you, I'm told you're not taking it. You're telling them it has to come to the county. So I'm not sure where your risk is.
So when we referred to taking on risk on behalf of the county, we were referring to being your contracted partner. The Cowlitz County made the decision to end our contract, so that ended, and us taking on the risk and liability on behalf of the county ended February 28th. We are directing citizens that have found an animal in unincorporated Cowlitz County to come to your location or call to get direction where to go. We are not legally authorized without a contract to take in stray or municipal animals on your behalf
Well,
at
you
this
just said
point.
earlier in your presentation, you take animals in from all over the county. And I know Kalama hasn't had a contract with you forever. And
That's for surrenders. That would be owned animals,
Yeah.
not strays.
And that's not part of the contract. We don't take in stray animals from Kalama.
Megan, can you talk to I want to go back to the RFP. We put out the RFP, you guys responded to it, but then there were changes that were made to the services that were added through the negotiation. You
I'm
wanted us
not
to
aware of
change-
any.
or You wanted us to change our ordinances?
The
with regards
ordinances.
to, and that was later on in the negotiation. Can you talk to that? Why, if the initial RFP was answered, why were there changes during the negotiation as we moved along in the process?
So there were no services that were added, and that we were trying to take in more animals. Our goal with that was to take in less animals in order to work with you on, or work with all of the jurisdictions on budget constraints. So our budget from 2025 and projecting out to 2026 and looking at the cost of that, we knew was likely not possible for the jurisdictions. So what we did is we evaluated our services and our model, and we made some adjustments. So, and one of those adjustments was to reduce our cat intake. So a reduction in staff also was part of that in order to meet the budget constraints. And a way to do that is, it's a best practice across, I think I sent some information and some links that would be helpful in understanding kind of the data about TNR and why this works and how it stabilizes populations in the area. The idea was that, or the goal is that we would reduce the cat intake so that we could then meet the budget constraints. TNR was the way that we worked with the Joint Negotiation Board to do that. And that's where the ordinance change came from, because your ordinances did not currently allow us to release animals, trap, neuter, return them back to their location. So we needed to make that change.
And that was part of the proposal. And then those were the ordinance changes that had to come after to support that proposal.
So that was requested in the RFP.
No, it was not requested in the RFP, but when we responded to the RFP, we included that in our proposal, and that proposal was accepted.
So the initial proposal that you guys gave us, that was included in there?
Yes.
That didn't come up afterwards?
No.
It was just that we needed to prepare to make those actual code or ordinance changes with each of the jurisdictions following the agreement or acceptance of the proposal.
It was sent in our cover letter specifically outlining how we were able to provide the fee schedule that we were proposing and that we were going to need to make some changes internally, reduction of staff in order to do that, and explaining the research behind why this would make sense for your community with the data included in that. And then we later presented it in October to the Joint Negotiation Board, where there were representatives from Cowlitz County there on your behalf. And we walked through that and explained more at that time.
So I'm understanding you to say that there were no changes to the proposal that you gave us during this process.
No.
Other than we accepted your counter offer, the Joint Negotiating Board, after we presented, came back and asked us to reduce costs in year 2 and 3 of the 3-year proposal. And we accepted that counter and reduced those costs by 5 and 10%.
I guess I'm struggling with the liability or the risks that you say you would be taking on. One of the things I remember in that proposed contract language was the fact that one of the ordinance changes that we would have to make said that anybody who sues you, the county would be liable. You had no responsibility. I was absolutely not willing for the county to take on 100% responsibility for any mistakes that you make. And that language, for us to be forced to put that into county ordinances, I can't even imagine why you would think that that would be something that you could just wave a wand and say that we had to do that.
We did not ask for any liability to be taken on behalf of the county in the ordinance. We made zero request for that. I do believe that I watched a session where that was discussed, and given Jason, your attorney, maybe gave some information that he thought that you would be taking that on, but that was not written in our ordinance, nor was that expected of us. That was the first time that it came to my attention that there were concerns about that, was when I watched it on the session. That was not discussed with me directly or come through the Joint Negotiation Board. We may have been able to have some discussion about that and maybe make some changes that would have been more palatable to Cowlitz if there were concerns. I was not made aware of that at any point during the negotiation, and it was not written in our ordinances at all.
No, it's not written in your ordinances. It's written into the contract that we would have to adopt it into our ordinances is the problem.
So to clarify, we did request that the ordinances be updated in order to accept the proposal because of the fees that we reduced to meet the budget constraints on behalf of the jurisdiction. So that was why this was included. Taking in the volume of animals that we had taken in 2025 and duplicating that in 26 and looking at the cost of that, we knew would probably not be doable for the county as well as some of the other jurisdictions. So our goal was to reduce our volume, change our model, and that included a reduction of staff in order to do that. And so in order to offer the proposal with the fee schedule, that was the reduction, then we had to have those ordinances adopted so that we could return animals to field. That was a part of that, so that we could reduce the volume.
Okay.
I still don't understand why we had to change our ordinance for that.
As they were written, it did not allow us to return animals to field. So this was something that allowed us to take in animals, not hold them for 3 days, because that is part of your ordinances currently. So not hold them for 3 days, because then that would still take a lot of staff time. And to be able to skip the stray hold for animals that did not have a microchip, did not have any owner information coming in with them, did not have on a collar, did not have on an ID tag, did not have on a license or a rabies tag. Any of those animals would be held normally, but the ones that came in that were unaltered and were seemingly unowned, those animals could skip the stray weight, go directly to our community clinic, be altered, and then returned, reducing the labor for our staff and the strain on the shelter.
So basically you're talking feral cats.
Yes, community cats.
Okay, so let's go down that road for a minute on the trap, neuter, release idea. I've printed out, I've studied extensively feral cats, gestation periods, and studies as far as the trap, neuter, release program goes. That didn't work in Australia. They went strictly to euthanasia on all those animals they could trap and capture because of the extreme damage those animals were doing to their other populations. They put into extinction numerous dozens of birds, lizards, frogs, etc. Over 100 studies, over 100,000 animals studied, that they studied their digestive tract to see what they were eating. Trap, neuter, and release didn't work. And I understand that seems to be a golden standard in the United States. And if you're an animal lover, I can appreciate that. And my kids I've grown up with animals. I grew up with sisters that had cats and we had dogs, and my kids all had cats and dogs all through their childhood years. I appreciate animals. But I also don't think that it's the county or the government's responsibility to take on responsibilities for irresponsible animal owners. And I don't think that we should be trap, neuter, and release cats back into society. I don't agree with the concept that if you put a fixed animal back in society, that it'll prevent two normal feral cats from breeding because it's sitting there going to observe them, or whatever the mindset is of that. Makes zero sense to me.
I cannot speak to the Australian studies. I can, however, tell you that the United States studies that have been conducted contradict that. And that's the information that we're working on. I do again want to say that if there is if you're not interested in the ordinance changes and TNR, then that is something that we can discuss. But the lower cost was associated with the ordinance changes and our ability to skip the stray weight and return the animals to field because it allowed us to reduce our cost. That was the goal. That was why we brought that.
When I take the numbers, and it stuns me that the cost for you to do business, if the county, if the agencies are only paying 48% of your costs, if I double that to figure out how that equates to how much it costs per animal, right now the cost running on 1,000 animals a year from the county at $300,000 a year for us to pay, that's over $1,000 an animal easily. Well, excuse me, $100 or $300 an animal. If you double that, because we're only paying 48% of the cost, that's $600 an animal. If I put that into taxes, then on a countywide basis, there's only roughly 53,583 tax-paying properties in the county. We'd have to collect in property taxes roughly $6, at least $6, if not more, per property in the county, just to pay the bill for the Humane Society for the county's share of it. Then we'd have to turn around in Longview for their population of 13,833 approximate tax-paying properties in the city, for their cost to be anywhere close to ours would be astronomical to put it on property taxes. I can't imagine that on a countywide basis, even if you look at all the animal lovers in the county, if 50% of the homeowners in the county have pets and 50% of the people don't have pets and don't want to pay for them, we're shifting this whole burden to run the Humane Society on a countywide basis on people whether they like it or not.
I have a couple things I'd like to say. One is that you currently are not or you're not asking your citizens who own pets and contribute to the taxpayer burden. You're not asking them to pay reclaim fees when they have an animal that is brought into the shelter system. You guys made the decision, or someone made the decision to remove reclaim fees from your ordinances. So there is no charge to the citizens who have an animal that is lost and come in to reclaim. You're not asking them to pay licensing fees, which is for any animal that would be out in the county that would then go to support the program. That is one option that I would like, if you're interested in the future at any point working with us, to consider. I do think the other thing that is important is that this work still has to be done on some level, and there is still a cost to that. I'm not sure how that pencils out for the county, but there is still a cost to pay your officers, to pay your animal care workers, to pay the veterinary bills, to pay all of the other things that we provide in the contract still have to be done. So there still is a cost. If you're not contracting with us, it doesn't mean that cost goes away.
And I think what we're committed to is finding a way to make this work for everyone. You can see by supporting the work through donor fundraising, some other fee for service, we aren't charging you 100%. The 3-year contract was 48, roughly 50%, 55%, and 60% of cost. We are willing to be partners with you and offset some of those costs because we believe that this is what is best for the community and that we can provide a service for you, and we're willing to supplement and support it.
Since we're on cost a little bit, let me throw a figure out to you. I'd be interested in your opinion on it. If you look up, and I'm not saying every time you look up and you ask for average costs or what through any search engine or chat GP or any of that it's 100% accurate. But when you look up and you look at the things that we're required to do, bringing in, there's intake and then the 3-day boarding of that animal, it comes out to, and this is the higher end of the average cost around the United States, of what it's telling me is like $120. So I'd be interested in what you think of that. And we're just talking about the stuff that we're mandated to do. We need to bring an animal in. You have an intake, you need to do your work there, and then we're required to have it there for 72 hours, which we pay for. And that cost is what I'm being shown is around 120. I'd be curious your thought on that.
Well, the majority of the animals are not reclaimed. There's only a small percentage. I don't know the exact numbers up here, but it's probably 5 to 6% of cats. Dogs, I think, is closer in the
50.
Yeah.
what?
50%.
50%. So you've got half of those animals that aren't reclaimed that need an outcome. And so there is a cost to then providing that additional care,
Yeah.
getting them into a home or another pathway.
And then that's where I'm going, okay, where do we transfer? Where does it transfer from what we're required to do per RCW to a mission that you guys want to do? And what I'm trying to get at, I'm okay paying for what we're required to do. I struggle paying, and each shelter around the nation probably has different missions that they want to do, and I think that's awesome. But I think those type of things need to be paid for by donors, foundations, the people that volunteers, all that type of stuff. So what I'm trying to get at is how do we get to the point where we're paying for the actual cost of moving this animal? And it seems to be quite a bit off. If this is even close. If 120 is even close, because
It's hard to know the factors that went into that, but we do live in Washington State where minimum wage and things are higher. So our cost to do business and hire
Yeah.
people, it may be higher.
so if we're right around the initial year of the contract, I think Commissioner Farrell said we were right around $300 an animal. So even if this is off by a bit, do you ever see us getting closer to the point where it's we're paying for the cost and not the mission?
May I respond to that? The request for proposal that went out asked that we also have an outcome for animals, adoption, transfer, euthanasia. So that was in the request for proposal. And if you look at municipal models, including your current model that you have been operating in the past 2 months, municipal shelters are required to have an outcome for that animal. So that is still funded by taxpayers. That is also your current model. Your current model animals come in and they don't disappear after 72 hours. They are still in the jail or the shelter that you have. And you are responsible currently for finding an outcome for them, transfer, euthanasia, adoption.
Part of that includes us working with nonprofits that absorb that cost, though, that's what their mission is. And they raise that funding through fundraisers and that type of stuff. So it's kind of, it's the same thing, the way I'm looking at it. If we're contracting with NGOs that are providing that service as part of their mission and their nonprofit, isn't that what you're doing? Isn't it the same thing though?
I mean, that's the goal. I'm assuming that you guys would like to get them out into nonprofits. I'm not sure that there is the network or the safety net of nonprofits to handle an outcome of the volume that Cowlitz County currently has. So in that case, you would still, I don't have the numbers. I don't know what your numbers are, but obviously I understand that you were trying to transfer them out after the strayway when you have them to nonprofits, but that's not at 100%. It's probably not at 50%. So those 50% of animals or whatever that number is are still your responsibility to try to find an outcome. And while you're trying to find that outcome, you're still holding them. So it's still, you're still responsible for an outcome. One of our outcomes is transfers to other nonprofits as well.
Yeah.
Our goal is to get them out as fast as possible, to reduce the length of stay, to reduce the cost to our partners.
And I think what we're talking about is just doing it in a seamless fashion, doing it in one place, taking that burden off you and your staff from having to negotiate and figure all of those things out and do it in a more centralized way.
So how can you explain how you determine to what a best practice is when it comes to the trap, neuter, and release program?
There's lots of models. We always look at the gold standard, ASPCA, Alley Cat. There are large nonprofits that have done extensive research on, and universities that have done extensive research on this and have identified what best practices are for us.
So is there like a target, a desired outcome that they're using to say, if we want to hit this, this is the way to do it?
Stabilization is the desired outcome. So stabilization of your community cats. So trying to not have those cats still out there and contributing to the overpopulation. So getting them in, reducing the length of stay by having them not sit the stray weight, altered, and then returned. There's a resource in this community and where these community cats are coming from. If you take animals, you take them in and you euthanize them, or you take them in and then you find a different outcome for them, then there's still a resource. They will continue populating to the point where that resource
So
is.
on that point, based on us applying this best practice, will we see a day when we will not be taking in 1,000 animals?
The goal is to not take in more animals. In addition to us being able to take in less cats, so a reduction in cats, yes. But there's going to be a point where it's not just going to, we're never going to take in no cats. There's always going to be cats that have owners that are sick or injured that won't meet the qualifications for this program. So it's to really try to stabilize the community cats so that we're not taking in more than 1,000.
It's apparent that there's been miscommunication and or lack of in this process. What are your thoughts as to how we got here and why? Because everything that you guys have said so far, I'm not understanding why this wasn't the way that it was in the very beginning, and this conversation wasn't had. And if you were watching sessions where you heard miscommunications, Megan, and saw things that were being discussed, why that wasn't brought to our attention? Well, I mean, I want to know why we're at the situation that we're at right now, because to me, that's a red flag. As hopefully, if there is a partnership moving forward, what's going to prevent this from happening again? To where we're right back to this same situation, talking about terms to a contract, questioning what took place and how we got to this point.
Well, I'll let Megan kind of speak to that specific instance, but I would just say, and we, spoke a little bit when you came and toured, and I appreciate you doing that, that I don't exactly know, to be really transparent. This is why I'm trying to provide this timeline as best we know it and how we followed the RFP and the requests. Where the breakdown was between the joint negotiating board and you or the other councils, I can't speak to that. We didn't have line of sight. I think I spoke very directly that we believed, right or wrong, that the communication we had with the representatives of that joint negotiating board was the appropriate communication, and that those discussions and the proposal and the questions were being addressed with you all in some fashion. Had we known that there was going to be the confusion, or maybe things weren't passed along in a way we thought, we would have absolutely been here. We would have loved to come and talk and present and do all those things. Again, right or wrong, we believed we were doing the right steps and that wasn't really required through this particular process. Now, we've learned a lot. Obviously, moving forward, we would do things differently. We know each other a little bit better. And we apologize for any role that we played in that, but honestly, we really thought we were following the direction and the steps that were outlined by the RFP and the joint negotiating board. And I'm not trying to fault anyone. I'm just saying we don't really have clear line of sight. But moving forward, we will be here. We will be in more direct communication, and we are committed to doing that. I can't speak for Megan specifically around that one particular session, but
As Andrea said, we followed a process. So I had weekly meetings with the administrator who was administering the contract, or this ILA, which was City of Longview. I did have discussions about that. Those discussions, is my understanding, it was discussed with me, were reported then by the attorney to your representative. Now, I don't know how maybe that information from your representatives did not get to you. I don't have line of sight to that, but I was communicating through the appropriate channel as set up by the ILA and the Joint Negotiation Board.
Um,
And I do believe that Megan did offer that if there were concerns about the ordinance language, that we would be willing to look at other, partnerships across the country, other jurisdictions, other nonprofits, and come up with some language that everyone would be more comfortable with. So I do believe, upon learning that, there was kind of a back discussion about what can we do to help, and would you like us to research some other options?
yeah.
I guess I have one other question, and that is, earlier you talked about certain fees that come about that are returned to the jurisdictions or credited back to the jurisdictions. Does that include adoption fees?
Does not include adoption fees. It would include any fees that are in your ordinances that are required for owners to pay, which are reclaim fees, boarding fees, transport fees, if applicable, licensing fees. Those are the fees that would be written into your ordinances that we would take on your behalf and then return them back to you.
So I guess my thought is, if an animal comes into you from the county that ultimately it goes up for adoption, based on the numbers, the amount of money that we're prepaying or we're paying by contract for you to take care of animals from the county, and you keep that animal for 3 days and it ultimately gets adopted, why wouldn't some of those, I see for dogs, you're up to $500-600 an animal. Why wouldn't some of those fees come back to us if we've already prepaid for all that care for that animal?
Adoption fees are variable. Not every animal has an adoption. There are other outcomes, transfers. I think that could be a discussion that we have if the county or any other municipality is paying 100% of what it currently costs to have us provide those services. So given the 52% gap, it doesn't seem like that would be appropriate for us to return those reclaim or those adoption fees.
Those fees right now are helping make up that 52%.
That was part of the fees that were discussed, fees and donations. That's part of the fees discussed in the funding of contract services.
Yeah. Just kind of tell you how you talked about the contract, and I can give you my opinion on how I looked at it. And then if you're open to it, we are a public meeting. If you don't mind, I don't want to steal all the time. The public might want to interact with us also, if you're open to that. You know what? When I looked at it, to me, it was just a contract, and being in banking for 40 years, I've seen a lot of contracts, and it was just a matter of probably a little bit of history. When we had to take on animal control, we didn't really have a choice. It was told us, not by you, by the previous people, that they're no longer going to do animal control, that you're going to have to take that on yourself. So all the entities had to figure that out. And we didn't know exactly how that was going to work. Sheriff and his team put together a plan. As it turns out, it was a plan that worked really well, much better than I would have anticipated taking that on. So when we got to the contract, and I'm looking at the cost of the thing, to me, it was just a cost issue. I felt that with the experience and what I had seen on that side, that I think we can do this at a better price for the citizens of this county. And that's all it was. It wasn't, I've been out and visited you guys. I got no issues with you, but I'm sitting here looking to try and determine the best value for our citizens out there. And it felt like, to me, that we had the ability to do that. Now, I could be proven wrong, or I could be proven right, and we'll make decisions from that. But I can tell you, and I just have 1 month, and I think in March, and you guys can correct me, I think we took in 12 animals. We got 7 back to the owners. We got 4 of them, I believe, adopted or went to places that adopted. 1 drove down from Seattle to grab because it was a specialty breed dog. And then I think we had 1 that had medical issues, something like that. Yeah. So that's probably not going to be a typical month. There's going to be busier months. I get that. But what I'm trying to convey to you, I wasn't looking at it as a personal thing, and I don't like Southwest Washington. Do I wish they would have worked with us a little more on the cost? Sure. But it wasn't that type of thing to me. It was just I saw the contract. I think we can do better. I'll be proven right, or I'll be proven wrong. What I didn't appreciate is the slam on us that we were somehow trying to disparage you and do that. And I'll just leave that at that. Then I would, if this is a public meeting, if you have something you want to say, you're welcome to it. They seem to open to asking questions. You can ask us questions. It's an open meeting.
I do want to just add one thing real quick, if I could. Andrea, when you and I talked, I asked you some pretty pointed questions with regards to the situation that took place, and you were open and honest with me. And I'd like to give you the opportunity to do that here in the public. And my, as I expressed to you before, my biggest concern is, to the chairman's point, we can talk contracts and numbers all day long. And we can come to an agreement on that type of stuff. What was not appreciated was what was put out on social media, on TV, in the paper, the tactics that we perceive that were used with regards to the denial of the contract or the non-renewal of the contract. And it was I'm hoping that it wasn't indicative of what things would be like in a future relationship, but I do want to give you the opportunity to speak to that, because I can tell you that for the majority, and I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but I know that for the three of us up here, that was something that was quite telling to us, and the way that we perceived what that was and how that took place. And as the chairman stated, it wasn't a personal thing, it was a financial decision that we had to make. But that turned into something completely different. And I got to tell you that if I'm going to look at contracting with anybody in the future, that's a red flag to me as we move forward. So I want to give you the opportunity to speak to that, per the conversation that we had.
Mhm. Great. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. And I think, what we talked about is that was never our intent. Our intent was that, between our organization and the previous organization, the community was used to coming to that location for full animal services. And we believed that we needed to communicate clearly with the community that they could no longer, if they lived in unincorporated Cowlitz County, come to us for their animals other than surrenders. We wanted to protect our staff, so to speak, because those were going to be very difficult conversations and confusing conversations. I don't think the average citizen understands these contracts. They don't understand the legal responsibility and if you can or you can't take an animal and all of those things. And so the intent was really to communicate clearly with the community. I think what I said to you then and what I would say to all of you now is I apologize for any outcome that created, any hard feelings. That was not our intent. It was really to communicate with the public that there was a significant change and to make sure that they understood that change. So again, you have my commitment that moving forward, we will be much more communicative, collaborative. We will work together on any future joint statements about any topic. And we own that may not have been the best approach, and we've learned a lot, and we hope that we can get beyond it and move forward. And that will take time and trust, and I understand that.
I don't believe much of what you just said. You put scripts out specifically for people to plug in the blanks and shoot it to us, with some of them with a little more personal context to it. That wasn't just stating your position. You're trying to drum up public support, condemning what we did. And that's just what you did. So I don't agree that you're just trying to make public awareness.
Well, it was primarily that. We do believe in these services for this community. We came here with a commitment to invest in this community. We've done that in a whole host of ways. And we want to be your partner. We want to provide these services in the community, and
Cost, right?
no, not at any cost. Not at any cost.
May I respond to,
Yeah.
Andrea said that we believe in these services for your community. And Commissioner Dahl, you just mentioned that you had 12 dogs that either came in or were adopted. And while that's great, that doesn't reflect 100% of the need in your community. We're still seeing animals that are coming in medical distress, cats in active labor. One of your citizens recently passed away with no known next of kin, and the dogs had nowhere to go. Those would be animals that we would have typically taken in through our contract that we're told that we're not able to be taken in through your current system. There's not the infrastructure, there's not the space. Maybe they didn't meet your qualifications of they're not dangerous. So that doesn't reflect the full need of the community. And we do believe in those services and want to be able to continue offering those to your citizens.
And those are some of the difficult conversations that our staff have to have. When an animal comes in distress and we can't take them in because of the contract, you can imagine how difficult that would be when we know that we have the support and the infrastructure to help them. So,
Yeah. The
So
cat
again-
taken over to the Hall of Justice, and we got it to a vet and took care of it. Yeah. Go ahead.
I do have a quick question on, based on what was just said. I apologize.
Make sure the green light's on, Keenan.
It is. Thank you.
Mhm.
So you said there was recently somebody that passed away and you guys wouldn't accept the animal because you didn't have a contract with Cowlitz, but wouldn't that be treated as an owner surrender and not a
No
stray?
owner to surrender it.
So they did owner surrender it, but isn't that your mission-based work that you said they weren't being billed for anyways?
There's no the owner had passed
Right,
away.
I understand, but is that treated as a stray hold and then billed to the municipality? Or is that a mission-based, hey, we passed away and maybe there's a fee to surrender the animal to your organization?
Yeah, good question. That would typically come in as a stray. That would come in as a stray, not typically. We would have to take the animal in as a stray and wait for any known next of kin to come forward. So in the middle of the night or whenever the animals come in, if the owner's passed away with no known next of kin, then the animal would need to come in, be held to give an opportunity for any next of kin that maybe needs to be contacted and know about the situation to be able to come forward and claim those animals.
So then does that time start, or so does that, the time starts when the animal comes into your facility? but
Correct, yeah.
If next of kin calls after an hour, is that, does their time that's being billed to the municipality stop at that?
We don't bill by the hour, so we bill based on our collective
So in
services
the
of an
contract
average.
Per day, like, it becomes your animal when it's released to you effectively, whether that's at the end of a 72-hour period or when next of kin calls and releases that animal to you.
In the codes, it actually becomes the county animal, is what it says.
Well, right. And then you take over from there. In a typical situation, so stray comes in through your front door and then 72 hours are up. It technically becomes the municipality's animal, but they yield that possession to you guys effectively, right?
They do. And the request for proposal, it was asked of us to include in our services, which are paid for, to adopt, transfer, or euthanize to provide an appropriate outcome. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And so our fees are based not on just one animal, it's averaged over the length of stay for every animal. So there's some that come and go quickly, some that stay a long time. So it's an average care of cost of care.
Okay, I think I'm understanding.
Yeah.
So I apologize. I didn't want to lose that thought before I had a chance to ask this, but my name's Keenan Harvey. I'm speaking as a citizen, not as a, not in my full-time professional capacity or not representing the city in any way. I did want to clarify, Commissioner Dahl, you had some great questions about the liability. And there was a memo put out by another municipal attorney a few weeks ago on the exact liability that's absorbed by a municipality, given the fact that you take the sheltering versus whether they take the sheltering. And it's surrounding workers' compensation. You guys are hiring the employees. You guys are taking on the liability. Animals are considered found property. So if something happens to that found property in that 72-hour period, so they are assuming a little bit extra liability versus if you do it versus them. So it was a really good memo. I would recommend that you obtain that from the other municipalities. It gave some good insight. And I did want to speak towards kind of why we are here. I would love to partner with you guys. You guys are a great organization. I've attended your auctions in the past. I knew your former director. Her and I still communicate every once in a while. I would love to partner with you guys, but it seems like every chance we get, we're given reasons not to, similar to the post that was put out asking for people to reach out and challenge their decision. In my perspective, why we are here is we were put with our backs against the wall by the former organization. And you guys are feeling some of the bad blood from that. 6 months prior to you guys taking over for Cowlitz County, we just renegotiated contracts. And then you guys had to come in and instead of honoring the $300 per animal, which ironically probably would have netted you guys more money, it felt like you guys broke the contracts and then wanted to rebuild. And it seemed like you were taking advice, ironically, from a board that kind of put us in that position in the past. So that's what it felt like from my perspective. The one question that I have is, what is your total operating budget for Cowlitz or Longview's campus alone?
Yeah, so I have a breakout here. I can tell you the percentage, it's about $1.5 million a year to operate. This is doing everything that we do, including contract work, municipal work, all of our mission work and the added things that we want to do. And how it breaks out for our total operating, and again, this was based on 2026 with this proposal with all 5 jurisdictions, accepting the terms. It's about 33% Cowlitz County-based donor support, 33% municipal contracts, 8% from other service fees, and 26% invested by HSSW and our donors outside of Cowlitz County.
So about $1.5 million. And so when you were originally proposing the contract with all of the entities, including Kalama, what was that figure for?
Kalama was never a part of it. I mean, I think
At
you
the
know
very
this, they've
beginning,
never
they weren't.
historically partnered even with a previous organization.
You know, ironically, we would always take in animals from the city boundary line, and they always happen to be on the left side of the line instead of the right. I understand that.
Yeah. So, so Kalama was never a part of, that is based on the 5 jurisdictions that were part of the
What-
final ILA.
What was that, the total ask with the 5 organizations before Cowlitz dropped out?
Just roughly 537,000 and 225, I believe, was Cowlitz's portion
Okay, so you're
for year 1.
using round numbers, your mission-based work is about $500,000 then. So you're asking for 50% of the non-mission based work to be covered by the municipalities. The original contract's 500,000, your budget is roughly 1.5 million. So 50% of your mission-based work, the $500,000 would be.
We're supporting.
Okay, and then, so you're asking the municipalities roughly to spend, or to pay about 33% of your total operating budget.
Or 48% of the cost to do the municipal work,
Understood. Thank you.
as outlined in the RFP.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
And Keenan, I will say we want to partner with you all as well as citizens in your official capacity. There's a lot of history here before us. And we hope today can be a start of a new day and turning a page and really saying, how do we communicate better? How do we work together? And how can we be partners in providing the services you need and the services you want here in this community for animals and people who love them?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Anyone else? Hey, sounds like the desire here is, I don't know if we have solved anything today, but other than the fact that maybe we'll keep the lines of communication open and see where we can go from there.
That really is the
Have-
goal. I mean,
Yeah.
we really just wanted to come and
Yeah.
explain kind of how we saw this process go, why we did some of the things we did, bring clarity to some of the questions that we had been hearing, and really come and say that we do apologize for any missteps and any hardship that we caused. It was, and that we would like to move forward, and that we are here. You have a choice. We understand that. But we are here and we've invested in the facility. We've invested in local staff and are training that staff here in this community. We are using local businesses and vendors as we do work up here on the building, et cetera. We are committed. And if you so choose and would like to move forward with continued discussion and come back to the table to discuss a contract for this year or beyond, we are more than willing to do that.
We do have a committee, we meet every week on this, and what I will tell you is we'll try and keep that open and make sure that we, if we feel we can have some mutual ground, that we reach out and see if we can make that happen. That sound fair?
That's great. Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.
I just want to add real quick. And please don't misinterpret what I'm saying, because I'm very grateful that you guys came and that you were willing to sit through this and to present your point of view. But I'm just going to tell you from my perspective, which is what we talked about before, that what we're dealing with is perspective. This is all very reactionary to the fact that the contracts were denied and that the other municipalities extended their contracts to the end of the year and put a clause in for a 60-day notice. And I can appreciate that you guys are here. What I want to make sure of is that, and I need you to look me in the eye and tell me that, because I do believe this is reactionary due to that, I'm questioning why, Megan, in particular, you weren't being proactive with the issues that you saw as far as the negotiations were, or it wasn't going well. You stated that you watched some of our meetings and sessions, and it just bothers me that we're here now because we're reacting to what took place, as opposed to, and I'm not saying that you're insincere, but I am saying that what you're saying is because we're in the situation that we're in, right? I mean, that's how I'm taking it, and I appreciate it and I understand that. But it's a hard pill to swallow, given the amount of emails, the phone calls, the messages that we got on what kind of people we are, where we can go, what we can do when we get there. I mean, it was a barrage. Okay. And to me, that's not indicative of somebody who wants to partner with us. I felt like we were being pigeonholed and painted into a corner. And I just want you guys to know where I'm at with that whole situation. I'm willing to let bygones be bygones, but I also want to put it out there that, to me, that was a red flag as we move forward. And so I'm not saying I'm not open to the opportunity for you guys to earn that trust and to overcome that, but I do want it to be said that I wasn't impressed with that.
So to answer your question, I was not aware that the negotiations were not going well from the county's end at all. We provided a proposal. There was a fee associated with that proposal, obviously. There was a counter offered. That counter was accepted. The ordinances were taking more time. I was made aware January, we put it in the timeline, I think it was January 13th or 14th, that there were some concerns. I expressed openness to hearing what those concerns were about the ordinances so that wouldn't stop anything moving forward. Was not given any feedback on what might make it more palatable. Then the contract was not approved to move forward. We had given the extension in good faith, assuming that things were going well because the proposal had been accepted. And through my discussions, I had no indication, other than the one email that I got that had some concerns about the ordinances, that it was ever a consideration not to move forward with our contract. Otherwise, I absolutely would have escalated this.
How long were we negotiating that contract?
We submitted a proposal in September. I think it was September 27th. We presented to the Joint Negotiation Board maybe mid-October, October 24th, I think, actually. And then it was accepted after that. Then we went into weekly, so with the administrative lead, then we went into weekly meetings, discussing the contract, discussing the ordinances, discussing next steps, how are things going, what discussions are happening, what meetings are happening, what's the timeline, how do we get across the finish line, what's needed from us now, extensions. So we provided the extension in December, and then we did the extensions through the end of February, assuming by the end of February that would provide plenty of time for us to sign the finalized contract. So September to beginning of February was when we were given notice after that there was a decision.
Okay.
I didn't even know the meeting was happening at that point, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say that we did believe, and I do believe that Megan was following the path and the process that was laid out. We did believe, right or wrong, that kind of the communication was sitting with this joint negotiating board and the representatives, then back to their elected officials. And again, we didn't feel at that point that we needed to be there, that we had a verbal. We believed that they had some level of negotiating ability, and that they accepted the contract, the terms, and we're just getting the final details of the contract and the ordinances over the line. And that there was really no need, because this group had been established, to come and sit before all of you and present this. Again, we've learned a lot, and I think because this is a new process for all of us, you know, we can look at how we do that better next time.
Thanks.
Okay. Once again, we absolutely appreciate your time, that you come in and sit with us, and I think the thing that needs to come out of this, and I think we'll work on that, is keep communication open and see if we can find some partnerships that work. Okay?
I appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much.
With that, we will adjourn. Thank you.